What are the signs that your child is struggling with mental ill health? Mental illness is on the rise among our children and young people in Australia. There is a lot of work to do. Hello and welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every day on Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. And Kylie, in the last few days, I've had a fascinating conversation with clinical psychologist and academic Dr. Jamie Northam from the University of Sydney. We were having a chat about mental health challenges, especially among our young people, and she shared a metaphor with me that I had to bring into today's pod. So we're not supposed to be talking about this until Saturday. We're going to play the whole interview about kids and mental ill health on Saturday. But check this out. This is what she had to say about kids and their various struggles.
So the dandelion orchid metaphor is that you've got different types of kids, and you can think of kids as different types of flowers. The dandelion flower or a child is the sort of child who'll grow anywhere. They're really resilient, they're robust, they need really minimal conditions to grow into a healthy functioning human being who's pretty happy. Then we get these children sometimes who we refer to as orchids, and they're very sensitive to environment. And they need very particular parenting input and very particular environments to grow. And when they grow, my goodness, they are spectacular. And I like to think about the parenting choices we make about discipline and learning skills and all those things as really individual to families and really individual to kids. What will work well for one kid might not necessarily work well for the other kid, even if both things are evidence-based. So what we need to do when considering which treatment to go with or which skills to implement, if you're thinking about advice that you receive on Instagram or TikTok, it's one, are there studies behind this that show that it works and that it doesn't do harm? Two, what I think is really important, are there clear guidelines on how to actually do it? Because a lot of the time, Insta mums will tell a nice thing and you go, that sounds cool, but I don't actually know how to do that then. So you want to see the actual steps involved so you don't screw it up, to put it really bluntly. And then lastly, you got to go, is this right for me? And is this the right fit for my child?
I know this is a real big tangent, but this actually reminds me of a poem that I may have sent to you.
This is a big tangent. Did not see that coming. Here we are talking about parenting and you're about to talk about our dating life.
Roses and lilies, just...
You've just heard flowers and you've thought, my husband was getting it so wrong and I still married him. Let's go back to parenting in a sec. Here's the short version. You sent me a poem about how there were lilies in the garden and lilies on the wall and blah, blah, blah. There's lilies everywhere. And why do you suppose that with all these lilies everywhere, I should so desire a rose, right? That was the poem.
That was the poem.
And for some reason, I misread the poem and I started to call you my Lily. We were dating. It was like a pet name and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm just a Lily. And is this guy's not serious about me? We digress. Fortunately, I figured it out, made you my rose, married you. We've been...
And now we have a lily and an Ella rose.
That's right. Yeah, we've got a lily and a rose in our family. But let's go back to Dr. Jamie Northam's metaphor.
I'm sorry. Mind wandering.
There are some kids who are dandelions and some kids who are orchids. In other words, there's this temperament and personality variable that impacts how what we do with one child can work so well and it doesn't work so well with another child.
And the thing that stood out to me as I was listening, outside of the lilies and the roses,
right,
was the idea that parenting isn't a one-size-fits-all. We can nail it with one child, utilising a different technique or even just a mindset when it comes to how we interact with them, and think we've got this down pat and it's going to be amazing. And then the next child comes along and it doesn't matter how many times we go down that road.
Oh, it does your head in.
It just does not compute, does not work. And in more cases than not, we end up down a completely different road. Is not where we want to be.
So the other thing that I really want to pick up on from what she was saying is that when it comes to like Instamums, TikTok, there's never been more parenting advice available in the world. Never. Which makes my job really challenging in some ways, because every time I turn around, somebody says, well, I saw this on TikTok, or this Instamum's doing this, or I read this blog. And it's like, there are some really good ideas out there, but as she said, is there evidence behind them? Is there a really good theory that drives them? Or is this just something that somebody put a pretty picture of or a pretty video of some kids playing with their parents and said, oh, this is so nice? Like, there's got to be evidence behind what we're doing.
And then are there clear steps for me that I can follow? And I think that that's a really key component to being able to move forward. Because
that's why I developed Explore, Explain, Empower, right? Because I can sit down and talk about needs supportive parenting all day. But if you don't understand what that looks like in a conversation, in a discipline setting, it's not going to be helpful.
Well, especially if you're coming from the traditional consequence concept, the idea that we'd explore with our children how they're feeling and then work with them to provide a solution goes against the grain. So it's so far beyond where we've ever been before. Without those clear, concise steps for us to follow, we're going to stuff it up.
Yeah. The other thing that I will say, and I didn't get to say this to Jamie, but as I'm thinking about it now, Dandelions Orchids, sure, like we know that there's temperament and personality differences with kids, but when you've got a really solid piece of evidence that underpins, that's underpinned by really, really great theory, it will apply most of the time to most people in most situations. And I think that that's something that we can always rely on. That's why there's value in speaking to or listening to the right people. After the break, since our conversation was mostly about mental health, we're going to talk about the challenges, the concerns you want to be looking out for to know whether or not your child does or does not need to go see somebody because of some mental illness. Dr. Jamie Northam is from the University of Sydney. She's a clinical psychologist and she works academically doing research at USyd as well. We had a chat that I just really enjoyed so much. We come from quite different perspectives. She comes from a clinical psychology perspective. I come from a positive psychology, self-determination theory, well-being perspective. And it was a fascinating discussion. One of the best parts of the interview, something that just stood out so much to me, was I asked her what the signs are that things might not be going well. Like if we take it right back to really basic principles, how do you know that your child is not thriving? And this is what she said. Check this out.
So in psychology, we always speak about the 3 Ds when we're thinking about needing to intervene with kids. And those are distress, dysfunction, and deviance. So distress, if some behavior is worrying you or worrying your child, that's a perfect time to get help because that's one thing that's really important. Dysfunction, that's the things that I like to think about is impacting learning or impacting a really happy life. So if you can't make friends, if you can't form those relationships, that's having a bit of dysfunction. So that's probably worth looking at. And then deviance is the last one, which sounds a little bit scary when you say it like that. But what deviance refers to is really, is my child within the realms of what's considered normal at this age? And are they sort of meeting those milestones that would be expected of them? And if they're not, again, that's probably another tick that you know that it's time to seek out a little bit of extra support.
I'm really glad she clarified deviance.
That's right.
I was going down a completely different track for a second.
I don't use the word deviance. I use the word deviation because you can deviate from the mainstream without becoming a deviant. Yeah. And some people deviate in positive ways and some people in less positive ways. So, distress, dysfunction, and deviation or deviance are the things to look out for if you're worried that your child is not doing well.
Yeah, so I look at this in terms of, school refusal, for instance. We've got a really highly distressed child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who then at school is dysfunctional in that they're not able to learn because they're so highly strung in that space.
Well, the reality is they're dysfunctional at home as well, right? Like they big tantrums and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the relationships are challenged at every step because they're not able to make new friends, keep friends, or even have positive interactions with teachers and parents. And then as a result, often it impacts their milestone.
Yeah, they deviate
pathway.
from what the developmentally appropriate milestones would be.
So it feels like this is a really easy, achievable checklist for parents to look at when they're assessing whether or not this is something that we probably need to seek extra help with.
I found it really helpful. The whole conversation with Dr. Jamie Northam was really insightful, really useful, and I think any parent who's mindful about either their parenting practice or their concerns about their child's mental health, you really want to hear the whole thing. So we're going to play the entire interview on Saturday morning. You've got it there for your weekend listening. I reckon you're going to love it. It's really simple to listen to. She communicates so clearly and talks about really important things to help your family. So please take a listen to the full interview on Saturday with Dr. Jamie Northam from the University of Sydney, clinical psychologist and lecturer at that Sandstone University. Hey, the Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. We would love it if you'd leave us a 5-star rating or review. You get a nice warm fuzzy because you've done something nice for us. And you get to help other people as well. They find the podcast because you've left that rating and review. If you could take 30 seconds and do that, can I invite you to do that? It would just make such a difference. More information and more resources about making your family happier are available at happyfamilies.com.au.